Humans in finance, that's the name of the panel. It's about the human element in finance. I'd love for everyone to introduce themselves, not you, Emilia. We'll know too much already. If you could just introduce yourself, starting with Christel, and just say a few words about yourself and your journey in finance.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, David. Christel Rendu de Lint. I'm co-CEO of Vontobel. So Vontobel is an investment management firm in Switzerland. Size for you is we're managing about 230 billion US dollar. My journey, you know where it started, David, Vikas?
Maybe in the back there, you have a photo you can show us. Can you show us this photo?
This is a scary photo, I think, but...
It's coming, the photo is coming.
So, so that would be Vikas here, and that would be me there. So it started 30 years ago for the three of us, plus Alexis, the four of us, PhDs, London Business School. You guys were in finance. I was the odd one out in economics. I was planning to stay in academia. I did not. Then, for various reasons which we can go into. But yeah, started at Morgan Stanley as an economist first, and then went straight into investment management myself. So went against all of your theories of market efficiencies. So really took it to the edge, and that's what I've been doing all of my careers. And got then contacted by Vontobel for a role as a head of investments, and since then have become co-CEO. So I'm really grateful, David, that you pulled that conference together, bringing academia and practice together, and for us to bring us back together, actually. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, David, for getting me here and connecting me with old friends. And this is like really embarrassing to see this photo, which I still had it from the brochure. So my name is Vikas Agarwal. I guess you probably heard my name before when Prabhala was presenting the paper, which we co-authored. My journey, of course, started with these great people, and they still consider me friend, which means a lot. I learned a lot from these guys, but I chose the dark side, unlike Christel, who went to the bright side, and Alexis Julesau, who is another LBS PhD student. And so I started working on hedge funds, which were, when I still remember my advisor asked me, do you want to work on hedge funds? And I said, what are those? And so I had no idea. And then, I read about them for a week, and then I said, yes, I'll work on hedge funds. They're very exciting. So I started off, my journey at Georgia State, and I've just stayed there. Nobody wants to hire me. still with Georgia State all these years. And I started my research on institutional investors, initially starting with hedge funds, and did a lot of work on mutual funds later on. And then slowly I decided I need to start switching back to the other side of the market. So you saw I now work on retail investors. So together now I've covered the whole market, institution and then the retail investors. And today I'll talk a little bit about my research related to humans. So thank you once again for inviting me.
Hey everybody, my name is Daumantas. I'm a co-founder and CEO at TRANSFERGO. TRANSFERGO today is a global payments and neo-banking platform targeting consumers and businesses. We recently, I think, exceeded 9 million customers across Europe who are sending money globally, 150 destinations. The company is founded by Lithuanian guys now 12, 13 years back. As I used to say, we didn't come from finance, so we sort of understood how it should work. I still don't think that I come from finance, but I think after 12, 13 years, I qualify as from the financial sector. But I guess our company was founded on the principle that customer first and truly consumer-centric brands are the ones that will reshape next chapter of finance. And we didn't, the whole movement didn't disappoint, and we played our small part and continue to play our small part in it. So, yeah.
So this is humans in finance. different aspects to it. Humans as leaders, we started with that. Humans as entrepreneurs, employees, customers, investors, academics. I want to start with Daumantas because as it happens, about 10 years ago, when I was just getting interested in fintech, I interviewed your co-founder, Justinas. And you were still a very young company then. And he told me how you got started. And something that really stuck with me. And as I started getting involved in some kind of entrepreneurial activity, he said that initially you had these email notifications whenever someone used your service. And that at the beginning, you knew everyone who was using this service. And then, at some point you knew, but okay, I know where this guy is from. And then there was this first time when someone used it whom you did not know, and that was a magical moment, which, by the way, I experienced. My co-organizer, Vlad, and I, we experienced it when Zvi Wiener registered for a class. Zvi, where are you? Thank you so much. He registered. I didn't know who he was. How did he find out about our conference? It was a magical moment. So what other magical moments have you had in your journey?
Wow. You are very right. And Justinas never lies. So he was actually 100%. Actually, the day when non-friend used TRANSFERGO was, I think, 2012, October, something around that time. So, and we had a good party with that one client. I think this principle and the whole idea of how would you build a service if you only had one client is still a recurring topic today. Because then you can build. I think the biggest issue with payments and the whole idea of, and I will get back to your question, but the biggest idea is that we treat customers generically. So when you fight fraud, when you fight bad actors, everybody then becomes part of the problem when there's actually a very small subset of customers. But this is really an information problem. This is really lack of understanding around individuals. Because if you know an individual, you know where they went to school. It's a bit like a corner shop mentality, right? You know everything about them. So how can you scale that? And now with the world of AI, you can actually do that more and more because you can process a lot of these at scale. So a lot of our best moments actually came from getting through some of these, either launching a new market and getting amazing customer feedback in new markets, which is always difficult, or new segments. Now we're back and doing a lot in business segments where we are building up new. You are sort of a startup within the company, and these magical moments are coming in when you really delight your customer, and then they call up and they say, wow, Friday, 7 p.m., you solved the problem for me. And that still is, for us, is one of those moments. So that's people, and people sell to people, and that's what you like doing.
Vikas, so you've been studying a lot of behavior around the investment management industry. Your paper on sibling rivalry is so cool, I asked you to explain it to a comedian, and you did. What kinds of, so what did you learn from your research into human behavior around investment management?
So first of all, thank you very much for believing that I could be funny. When I told my wife, she started laughing. She said, "Really? David hired you?" I said, "Yeah, he just fell for it." So anyway, this was a very interesting project because I'd been studying fund managers, mostly looking at when typically people look at studies on mutual funds or hedge funds. Usually the data on the funds is available, and you can observe their performance, you can observe their risk, all kinds of, what type of portfolio they hold and so on. But usually they forget there is a human being behind it, right? So, who is this person? And so a lot of the research that I have done and others have done over the last decade or so is kind of going into the behavior of the manager. And for this project, what we thought would be really cool is to really go and understand the origins of human behavior. So what we did is we actually dug out the data on mutual fund managers and tried to find out their birth order. So let me explain what is birth order. So where are you in the sibling order? Are you the eldest or are you the youngest? And how does that shape your behavior? And so just to give a context of what is sibling rivalry, so in sociology and psychology, there is this whole literature on evolutionary psychology, which is sort of Charles Darwin's theory, where survival of the fittest. So if you are having a younger sibling and the younger sibling wants attention from the parents, he or she has to fight for it, right? Because there is somebody else ahead of of him or her in the queue. And so what we wanted to do was to get this information about fund managers and see if they were the youngest in their family, how does it shape their behavior much later in adulthood when they become fund managers? And guess what? What we find is that the guys who are younger, they are more rebellious, they're more risk-taking because they want to get the attention of their parents while growing up, and that kind of gets embedded in their DNA, and that shows up much later when they become fund managers. And to prove this, what we did is not only just show that they are the youngest, and as Antonio was talking about, we have to do mechanisms, right? We have to figure out causality. So what we did is we found out the age space between the siblings. Okay, so if the age space is a lot, which is true in my case, I have two daughters who are 10 years apart, they're not fighting for anything, right? Because they're so far apart. But if you're a few years apart, then you are more likely to compete with each other. So we find this effect is more pronounced when they are close. And then we find that this effect is pronounced when the parents have limited wealth, because then there are limited resources. That's why they fought. And when the parents had limited attention, so if they had a single parent or one person had, gone away for war, for example, so we collect information on the parents, on the siblings, on the wealth. We collected so much data, it's unbelievable. And then we just use all of this to really dig this out. So this is a kind of longish answer, but basically we show that these guys take much more risk later on. They invest in lottery type of stocks. And then, unfortunately, despite taking more risk, they don't do well. They actually underperform.
So this is obviously research that Christel, your HR department, is very interested in.
Yes, indeed.
We're talking about.
I didn't know about it before. I'm an only child, so I don't know how I rank in your study as an active manager. But sorry.
So this is obvious. So this is about what the uniquely human things in finance. So obviously, like any good moderator, I asked AI what questions they should be asking, and they did. But the question that that we really want to know the answer to is not one of those questions that AI is asking, but what's it really like managing a huge financial company? I'm just kidding.
It's different every day. I think to your point, I was super interested how you put it with the life. Actually, I hadn't. You do a lot of stuff in the end. On the spot, right? I mean, there's no training that tells you, you're going to be a leader tomorrow in 1 year, or you're going to be a CEO or something like that. And when I was thinking about it, obviously, David, when you invited me, I was thinking about how is it different finance or not finance. And the one thing that sprang to my mind was to think leadership is always different, actually. So I take that example just in the role prior to the one that I have now, which was head of investments at the company. I had 6 reporting lines, 6 senior investors, by the way, 6 male, and I was giving that example to saying, but you cannot believe how different they were and how diverse, and how I was leading them individually differently and collectively yet in another way. And I think this is the point. As I think and so what trait is that? It's probably self-awareness, adaptability, and I'd like one that it's this humility, and it also goes in active risk-taking. Is knowing what you don't know, knowing that things can change. So how is it for me? It's super exciting because you find that. The intellectual challenge that we find in the research, that you guys find in the research, you find it in another dimension. You find it in that people interaction, because you don't know how people are going to react to how you lead them, and everyone is going to be different. And you as the leader have the responsibility to find the way to move forward, right? So that's super interesting. my experience.
Thank you, Christel. Emilia, so you're a resident organizational behavior expert. So you would just chime in at any point and you say, this is what the literature says, right? But, so just in two sentences, one sentence. Yeah.
This is actually not really about leadership, but I happened to see some research that showed that portfolio managers who are more narcissistic or more Machiavellian actually underperform, apparently. So there's some justice in the world.
Yeah.
And related to this, I'd like to ask Daumantas. So when you're scaling fast and you scaled very fast, you can tell us how many employees you have. How do you keep the company culture?
Well, that's the most difficult thing, is how do you build a culture that sort of self-corrects? And so for us, and it's been ups and downs, but I think the bottom-up values in our company are real. Owning it, being your best, focusing on the work that matters. All of these things are not just words, but when they don't work, when something is wrong, especially in the leadership side, there is a small rebellion in my ranks. When some leader is not acting, especially owning it, because we do a lot of things, some of them work, some of them don't. But probably the most problematic thing when some leader doesn't own their failures, when they try to either put it on others or try to pretend that it didn't happen. There's enough of smart people around that at any given point they will say, no, this is BS. Like, it was your accountability, you failed, and it's fine as long as you own up to it. So these sort of values, I think we build a critical group of people. Many of them are still with us, actually, all these years, that are sort of the cultural bearers, but also the company itself, that we want to work in this way. And that's why these values stuck for a long time. And even now, when we promote, when we highlight people, when we recognize, usually it's still the same values set up a decade ago are still very valuable. So I think that was one of the successes, that it's just not paper values somewhere in the drawer, but is actually how people tend to live their lives at TGO, and for many of them are big parts of their lives.
I'll ask you a follow-up question, but I also want to tell the audience that questions are very welcome. And the follow-up question is, so you mentioned the founders are Lithuanian, you are headquartered in Lithuania. What aspects of Lithuanian culture shape how you lead and your company culture?
Lithuania and the Baltic states are probably the hungriest region in the world to prove themselves. After we left the evil empire, I think the growth has been phenomenal. I think we overtook or matched Spain in terms of buying power per capita. In 35. I'm around for 37 years. The country has been around for similar, so it's very young country, and there is a mix of smarts and hunger, which I think and it's regional. I think Poland more of the same as well, and I think that really stood out. So maybe 10 years ago, we didn't know what we were doing that much, but we did so much of it that we actually learned by doing. And now the new generation, a lot of them are coming back home because the standards of living are amazing. I came back home after a long time, among many others. So I think we are living in one of the best times in Lithuanian history altogether. And now it's just a question of how much we can get from it. But yeah, it's good times to be here, I would say.
And it shows. Vikas, are finance academics themselves subject to the same biases they study?
It's a trick question.
What kind of biases are you talking about? Can you just spell it out, please?
I said it's a trick question.
Yeah, it's a trick question. With David, you never know. I want to just be very...
I'm just asking what AI told me to ask.
I mean, I think, at the end of the day, I think we are all humans, right? I think, yes, even if you talk to finance professors, they never talk about their own portfolios, do they? Like, I don't know what they are doing on their own portfolio. I can tell you one thing from my personal experience. During COVID, we were all stuck at our home, right? So I never used to invest in individual stocks before. I said, okay, there's nothing to do. I mean, just play around. And so, you start doing things which, you would normally not do. And, all kinds of biases people talk about. In fact, what is very interesting, since it's a fintech conference, so I saw a paper which now talks about even LLMs have biases. You know why? because LLMs have also been developed by human beings. So the developer, whatever biases he or she might have, would then be reflected in the LLMs as well. So I don't think we are, none of us is free from, that's my personal opinion, none of us is free of it, But I think there's this concept of bounded rationality, right? So I think we are rational most of the times, but there are instances when we might not be rational and we may have some kind of biases that we tell people to be careful about.
And so, in terms of this very human behaviors, Christel, your title is co-CEO. It's a thing that I think is rare enough that there aren't many studies, or maybe any studies. Maybe someone knows if there are studies on co-CEOs. But what's the rationale? What's the in what context do you think the dual CEO setup is best suited for? Because it's so rare.
Yeah, I think so. In that case, it was a specific starting point with the company where it was all about bringing together different parts, or the company had been more organized by silos before, and we were a little bit in the middle of the way in bringing all the parts together and being more than the sum of the parts, number one. Number two, I think it's a very good model if you actually do want a role model collaboration and bringing parts together and people together. Now, for me personally, if you ask me, was I surprised by this model? What did I think? Having been an active investment manager, trying to beat market, knowing that it is difficult, knowing that it did work. By the way, hint, I think most studies, you need to do them on equity markets. That's where the data are good. And the key difference in fixed income is the lack of liquidity at times, which explains why it's difficult to be efficient. But going back to that, when you want to beat markets, any good idea is a good idea. And your job is to pick it up where it originates. And so when I built the team, my investment team in the boutique, as I was hiring new people, they were further and further away from me. I younger and younger, or I was older and older. And so I was really conscious of making sure that they would speak up, because it might look like, you're way more senior. And so to me, the co-CEO model is exactly the same, and it extends. It's just, if it is about leading the company and bringing the right idea, who cares whether it's one or two, or by the way, three? It's a partnership model. So I think it doesn't work for all companies. It takes the situation, and it doesn't work with everyone. It takes the people who are aligned in their ambition, i.e. where you want to bring the company, and where it's okay to work as a duo and saying, we'll take the good ideas to move forward. So that was a bit of the context. And additionally, we did take it. Switzerland can be quite conservative, so it was shone upon or frowned upon when it was announced, and we definitely took it as a challenge to say it can work, and we'll demonstrate it.
Thank you. And as we're at the end of a very long day, so the closing question for each of you is, how do you recharge? Daumantas.
Well, 7 months ago I became a father, so recharging is a bit different these days, which I'm not complaining at all. It's great. No, for me it's nature. For me, it's one of the reasons we came back from the UK, London here is just. Everything is everything is easy and nature is close, and that for me is very simple things that are just the best of.
So I just did the Everest base camp. I hiked all the way 10 days to 18,000 feet. I had never gone beyond a few thousand feet maybe before. I thought I'd just challenge myself and do something different. I also recharge myself by coming to these great conferences and meeting people, because I always think I haven't done enough. So it just motivates me to do more. So this is my mantra.
Nature, sport, family.
Again, obviously I'm biased because I have this whole research on serious leisure. So if anything, serious leisure, so leisure that's not only relaxing you, but also detaching you completely. And that's going to be hard unless it absorbs you completely when you are a very busy leader, because things will keep running in the back of your head, right? So you need something like fighting for the what camp was that? to actually take it off your mind. And that has some sort of ambition in it, like getting better at something, getting higher, doing more, actually seems to provide more recovery for leaders and the psychological capital. So I'm definitely recommending serious leisure, which doesn't have to be Everest, right? It has to be collecting, it could be collecting coins, it could be something
but you're
very not
modest.
Heroic.
You're very modest because you're a marathon runner. I found out that like you have multiple marathons that you run. So
Yeah.
you're very
But,
modest. You're not telling.
Well, just trying to keep up with, resetting my expectations there.
Thank you so much, wonderful panel. Please give them a round of applause.